Okay, so get ready, because today we are diving deep into a book that's basically a rock star in the world of spirituality, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look these days.
It really is. But we're not just going to skim the surface.
Yeah.
We're going deep into its core message. We're talking presence.
The pain body.
Oh, yeah, and ultimately, how those concepts can maybe help us find a little more inner peace.
It's more than just another self-help book, though, right?
Right.
I mean, it's sparked a global movement
Totally.
around these ideas of mindfulness and truly living in the moment.
Absolutely. And we've got excerpts from the preface and a bunch of chapters to really dig into.
Okay.
But before we get into all that,
Yeah.
think about this for a second. Eckhart Tolle himself, he wasn't always this picture of serenity, you know. The guy struggled with some really intense anxiety and depression for years
Yeah.
before having this huge shift in perspective when he was 29.
Yeah, that personal journey that he went through,
Yeah.
that's actually really crucial for understanding his work, I think. He doesn't just preach these concepts. They come from a place of, deep personal transformation. It makes his message so relatable.
Oh, totally.
Even raw at times.
Yeah, you feel that as you're reading it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of Tolle's message.
Mm.
The big idea, the one that really made me stop and think, was this idea that you are not your mind. Which sounds simple enough, right?
Yeah.
But when you really start to think about it, how often are our thoughts just running the show? Past regrets,
Yeah.
future worries, those endless to-do lists.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
It's like this constant chatter in our heads that we've come to accept as normal, which, as Tolle says, is kind of a terrible calamity when you think about it, because it robs us of our inner peace. It prevents us from experiencing the power of now.
It's so true, and we get so attached to our thoughts, even the ones that make us completely miserable. Why do we do that to ourselves?
It's a great question, and Tolle believes it stems from this really fundamental misunderstanding. We've all heard that famous quote, right? I think, therefore I am.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we've equated our ability to think with being alive, with having an identity, and it's so ingrained.
Right, and so if we're not our thoughts, then who are we?
Yeah.
What's left?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And Tolle would argue there's this much deeper level of existence beyond all that mental noise, a place of pure awareness that we can tap into. And that's where things get really, really interesting.
Okay, so here's where the good stuff starts.
Right.
Let's be real for a second, okay? We all face challenges in life, work deadlines, complicated relationships, the whole 9 yards. Is Tolle saying that those things aren't real?
Not necessarily. It's a little more nuanced than that. What he suggests is that while these external situations, they definitely exist, right? It's our minds that have a tendency to blow them out of proportion, turn molehills into mountains of, unnecessary suffering.
Right.
It's almost like we create problems where they don't even exist sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I've been guilty of that for sure. But if it's so deeply ingrained in us, how do we stop the cycle?
Tolle believes, and this might sound strange at first, that our minds are actually addicted to problems. They give us a sense of self, something to grapple with, something to define ourselves by, even if it's negative.
Wow, that's kind of a mind-blowing concept when you really think about it.
Yeah.
So how do we break free from this problem-loving mind?
It all starts with awareness.
Okay.
Simply noticing those thoughts without getting completely swept away by them.
Okay.
Think of it like watching clouds drift by, instead of getting caught in the middle of a storm. And this is where Tolle introduces one of his most powerful concepts. The pain body.
Ah, yes, the pain body. This part of the book really resonated with me. It's like this hidden reservoir of all the emotional hurt we've accumulated over the years, often without even realizing it.
Precisely. It's that collection of old pain, grief, anger, resentment, all of it just kind of lurking beneath the surface. And it can resurface unexpectedly and really wreak havoc on our lives. But here's the thing. It actually feeds on our identification with it.
So the more we dwell on those negative emotions, the stronger the pain body gets.
That's the general idea, unfortunately.
That's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It can feel that way, but the good news is that awareness is the first step to breaking free.
Okay.
And, Tolle has some really insightful observations about women and the pain body in particular.
Yeah, he talks about how women, because they're naturally more in tune with their intuition and their emotions,
Yes.
they might actually have an advantage when it comes to spiritual growth. But
They may also experience the pain body more intensely, especially in connection with, hormonal cycles.
It's true. It's like all those suppressed emotions can just rise to the surface.
And Tolle's suggestion is kind of interesting. Instead of resisting it, he suggests that women can use this time as a powerful opportunity for spiritual practice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, by consciously observing those feelings as they arise,
Okay.
without judgment, they can actually transform that suffering into a catalyst for deeper awareness.
So it's about leaning into the discomfort instead of trying to just avoid it at all costs. Now, if there's one area where the pain body really loves to hang out, it's got to be relationships, right?
Oh, relationships, those beautiful, messy mirrors that reflect all our stuff right back at us.
That is one way to put it. So how does Tolle suggest we navigate the minefield of, love and connection without completely losing our minds?
He has a very unique perspective on that. He believes that relationships shouldn't be primarily about seeking happiness, although that can be a wonderful byproduct. He sees them as really powerful catalysts for consciousness.
So each interaction, even the tough ones, can become an opportunity for growth.
Exactly. It's about seeing our relationships as a spiritual practice,
Okay.
a chance to witness our own patterns, confront our pain bodies, and ultimately choose a more conscious way of being.
I like that. So we're starting to see how all these ideas connect.
Yeah.
Presence, the pain body, relationships. But we can't talk about Eckhart Tolle without talking about surrender. Right?
Absolutely not. We can't. It's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, but Tolle gives it a whole new depth of meaning.
Right. It's not about just giving up, or
Right.
becoming totally passive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not talking about waving a white flag and letting life just steamroll you. It's about relinquishing the ego's resistance to what is.
Okay.
It's about aligning ourselves with the flow of life instead of constantly trying to control every little thing.
That's a tough one. So instead of fighting reality, we just accept it.
Yes, even when it's really difficult.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard. And here's the truly radical part. Tolle believes that surrender is actually the ultimate act of power.
Okay, now you got my attention.
Yeah.
How is surrendering powerful?
Because it allows us to tap into this higher intelligence, a
Right.
force that's greater than ourselves.
Okay.
He's talking about connecting with something much bigger, something that transcends our limited ego-driven perspective.
That makes sense. So it's not about weakness. It's more about letting go of that need to be in control all the time.
Exactly. And this actually ties into another really big idea in Tolle's work, finding the divine in the ordinary.
Oh, I love that concept. It's like he's giving us permission to stop searching for some grand spiritual experience out there somewhere
Yeah.
and start appreciating the sacredness of just everyday moments.
Yes. It's about recognizing that the divine isn't out there somewhere,
Right.
It's woven into the very fabric of existence.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
in the silence between sounds, the stillness within movement, the awareness that underpins every experience.
It's like when you really stop and listen to the rain falling or the wind blowing through the trees.
Yeah.
There's a certain magic to it, for sure.
Exactly. And by consciously shifting our attention to these simple present experiences,
Yeah.
we create a space for that stillness within ourselves. And in that stillness, we open ourselves up to a much deeper dimension of being.
It's like hitting the reset button on these overstimulated minds of ours.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Presence, the pain body, relationships, surrender, even finding the divine in everyday life. But, I know a lot of our listeners really struggle with this idea of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Any insights from Tolle on that?
He does. And it's not about forcing ourselves to condone hurtful actions or pretend that everything's okay,
Right.
True forgiveness, according to Tolle, it arises from accessing the power of now.
So instead of dwelling on past hurts, we shift our attention to the present moment.
Precisely. By bringing our awareness to this very moment, we realize that the past only has power over us if we allow it to.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It really is. And it leads us to one of the most fascinating and some might say radical aspects of Tolle's work, his vision of a world that's been transformed by the power of now.
Okay, now we're getting to the really good stuff.
Yeah.
So what happens when more and more people start tapping into this present moment awareness?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What happens when we as a society shift from this ego-driven way of living to a more conscious way of being?
Yeah.
Tolle believes it will fundamentally change every aspect of our lives,
Okay.
from our personal relationships to our work, even the way we interact with the planet.
So it's not just about individual transformation then.
No.
It's like a collective awakening.
Exactly. And he takes it a step further with this really intriguing idea of the disappearance of work.
Wait, what? Does that mean we can all just like retire early and sip lemonade on a beach somewhere? Because I am here for it.
Hold on. I think we need to unpack this whole disappearance of work thing a little bit. Does
Yeah.
that mean, like, we all just quit our jobs tomorrow? I mean, bills have to be paid. Am I right?
Not quite that simple, thankfully. It's more about the nature of work changing. Imagine a world where work isn't driven by, ego and competition and that constant pressure to achieve.
Okay, that sounds pretty utopian. But how do we get there?
Well, Tolle believes that as we individually awaken to our true nature, that place beyond the thinking mind, we naturally start seeking work that's more aligned with our soul's purpose.
So less about climbing that corporate ladder and more about finding something truly meaningful. Exactly. It becomes less about external validation and more about expressing our unique gifts and contributing to something larger than ourselves.
Okay, I can definitely get on board with that. So it's not that work itself disappears, but rather our motivation for work is what transforms.
Precisely. It becomes less about striving and more about aligning with our true purpose.
I like it.
Yeah.
This whole conversation is making me seriously rethink my relationship with my to-do list.
Uh-huh. Maybe that's a good thing. Perhaps it's an invitation to approach those tasks with a renewed sense of presence and intention.
Yeah, you might be onto something. So if we can envision this future where work is driven by purpose and not just pressure, what happens to society? What does Tolle think will happen?
He suggests it could have a ripple effect, actually. As more and more individuals wake up to this deeper reality, it could transform our social structures, economic systems, even the way we, as a species, relate to the planet.
Wow, that's a pretty bold vision. So it's not just about personal transformation, but a collective shift in consciousness.
Exactly. And he believes it all starts with each individual cultivating a deeper connection to the present moment.
That makes a lot of sense. After all, how can we create a better future if we're constantly stuck in the past or worrying about what's to come?
Right. It's about recognizing that this moment, right here, right now, is where all the power lies.
This has been incredibly thought-provoking, but I'm also wondering about the practical side of things. If someone's listening to this and feeling inspired, what's a good first step? What's one thing they can do today to tap into this power of now?
That's a great question. And thankfully, Tolle offers a wealth of practical advice in his book. But if I had to pick just one, I'd say start by cultivating awareness in your everyday life.
Okay, that sounds doable, but what does that look like in practice?
It can be as simple as bringing your full attention to something you usually do on autopilot, like brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, or even just walking from your car to your front door.
So instead of letting my mind race with to-do lists and worries, I try to really be present in those moments.
Exactly. Engage all your senses. Notice the sensations, the colors, the sounds. Really be there, fully present in that moment.
It sounds so simple, but I can see how that shift in focus could make a huge difference. It's like hitting the pause button on the never-ending mental chatter and just allowing ourselves to simply be for a change.
And in that space of presence, you might be amazed by what you notice, both within yourself and in the world around you.
It's about waking up to the richness of this present moment instead of letting it slip away completely unnoticed.
Precisely. And that's ultimately what Tolle's work is all about, helping us rediscover the joy, the peace, and the aliveness that's always available to us right here, right now.
This has been such an insightful deep dive, and I know our listeners are going to want to keep exploring these ideas.
We hope so. It's been a pleasure diving into these profound ideas with you today.
And remember, the power to create the life you desire isn't something you have to chase after. It's right here, right now, within you. Until next time, keep those minds curious and stay present.